Okay, good morning. I'm covering the book Nuclear War Survival Skills by Cresson H. Kearny with authorization from Skyhorse Publishing. I covered chapter 6 yesterday, ventilation and cooling of shelters. And there was a couple of pages about directional fanning. It's kind of an addendum to the chapter that I didn't get to, but that I'm going to cover today. It's only two pages, so it should be a quick video. It's a good thing because my phone storage actually was filled up. I am going to cover this today. But this is still part of chapter 6. It's just a couple of pages about directional fanning. Okay, here we go. All right, directional fanning to ventilate shelters. Directional fanning is the simplest way to force enough outdoor air through typical basement, trench, and other expedient shelters to maintain endurable conditions, even in extremely hot, humid weather. During a worsening nuclear crisis, most unprepared citizens probably will not have the time and/or materials needed to make a KAP or other efficient shelter ventilating pump, which I covered in that previous chapter. So if you want a little more information on that, watch that video. So even if they have the instructions, in contrast, tests with average citizens have indicated that if they have instructions for making and using directional fanning, and if there are a few hours of warning time before the attack, then the majority will be able to ventilate all of their expedient shelters except some of the largest. The principal disadvantage of directional fans is that they are more laborious to operate than our KAPs that are manually powered, pendulum-like air pumps that conserve energy. A directional fanning to ventilate and cool small shelters. Okay, a two-handled directional fan of the size illustrated is less tiring to use and requires less manual dexterity than a one-handled fan with the same size blade. With this small two-handled fan, you can quite easily force about 300 cubic feet per minute, 300 CFM, of outdoor air through a crowded trench or basement shelter. This is enough air for up to 9 adults crowded into a small shelter in extremely hot, humid weather, and enough for about 100 people in cold weather. By fanning vigorously, 500 to 600 cubic feet per minute have been forced through a small covered trench shelter. So here's the diagram of that. To make a durable two-handled fan, first make its frames out of 2 sticks, each 14 inches long, and 2 sticks about 22 inches long. See sketch to strengthen the corners, overlap the sticks about 1/2 inch as shown. When using sticks cut from a tree, select ones with diameters of about 3/4 inch and make shallow notches in all 4 sticks before tying together the 4 corners of the blade. If you do not have strong string, use 3/4 inch wide strips of bedsheet cloth or other strong cloth slightly twisted. If using sawed sticks, be sure to use none smaller than 3/8 to 3/4 inch in cross section. If you have very small nails or brads, use only ones to combine each corner, then tie each corner securely. To prevent possible blistering of the hands, wrap cloth around the fan handles or wear gloves. To cover the fan's blade, any strong, light fabric, such as bedsheet cloth, serves well. If you are going to sew on the cloth, first cut a 26 by 30 inch piece. Wrap the 30 inch width smoothly crosswise around the frame after cutting 4 notches in the cloth's corners, so that the tied together parts of the sticks will not be covered. Pin or tape the cloth to make a smooth blade. Finally, sew securely. If waterproof construction and adhesive is available, a few smaller pieces of cloth can be used and the blade can be covered in a very few minutes. If time and or materials are very limited, make a fan with its blades merely a piece of cloth connecting two 22 inch long sticks. This very simple fan is reasonably effective, although tiring to use. Cardboard covering a blade is likely to become damp and fragile in the humid air of a crowded shelter. Very light sheet metal makes a good fan blade and requires only 2 sticks. A blade of 1/4 inch plywood is too heavy. If no sticks are available, a double thickness of heavy, stiff cardboard, 22 inches long by 14 inches wide, will pump almost as much air if used as a handleless fan. The pieces should be securely tied or taped together. If waterproof tape is available, cover the parts that you will grip with sweaty hands, thus preventing dampening and softening the cardboard. For maximum ventilation, the air intake opening of a shelter should be at least as large as its air exhaust opening. If the air exhaust opening of your small shelter is much larger than that shown in the sketches, block part of it off to reduce it to approximately this 24-inch high by 20-inch wide size for more effective use with this fan. The air should be fanned out of the shelter in the direction which the air is naturally flowing. For maximum ventilation rate, fan about 40 strokes per minute. Okay. With one or more directional fans, air inside of a shelter can be distributed effectively and the occupants cooled. Also, if during the time of maximum fallout dose rate, the occupants get close together in the most protected part of the shelter, they often will get unbearably hot unless fanned. To fan air out through an air exhaust opening, sit facing the opening with your elbows about 4 inches lower than the bottom of the opening. Then count 1, 2, 3 while you, 1, quickly raise the fan to a vertical position close in front of your face, and immediately push a slug of air into the opening, ending the power stroke with your arms fully extended and with the fan almost extended, almost horizontal and out of the way of air that was sucked behind the fan and is still flowing through the opening. Here's the diagram of that. 2, 3. After a slight pause, leisurely withdraw the almost horizontal fan until the bottom of its blade almost touches your stomach, preparatory to the next power stroke. To increase the flow of air through a shelter while fanning the occupants, have 2 or more occupants sitting inside the shelter. Each use a fan of the size described above to fan the air so as to increase its velocity in the direction in which air already is flowing through the shelter. Such directional fanning is especially effective in increasing the airflow through small, narrow shelters. To avoid higher radiation exposures near openings, build an essentially airtight partition across the shelter room with a 24-inch high by 20-inch wide hole in it through which to fan. By fanning through a 24 by 20-inch hole in a cardboard partition built across a doorway inside a U-shaped permanent trench shelter 76 feet long, the airflow is increased by an average of 327 cubic feet per minute. Sorry, this is smaller types of evidence. I need to get my eyes checked. All right, so there are those diagrams about the directional fanning. Okay, B, directional fanning to ventilate and cool large shelters. With a large one-man fan, to ventilate larger basements, big covered trenches, and other large shelters lacking adequate ventilation, use 1 or more large one-man fans. See sketch. Note that the 20 by 30-inch fan blade is made like a 2-stick kite, and that the upper end of the longer diagonal stick serves as a 10-inch handle. The model illustrated is made of 2 nominal 1 by 2-inch boards, one 46 inches long and the other 35 inches long. These boards are connected at a point 17.5 inches from their lower ends, with a single clinch nail, and then by being tied securely. The edges of the handle are rounded smooth. The blade frame is covered on both sides with strong bedsheet cloth that is wrapped around and secured to the strong cords of wire or wires tied to notches cut in the boards or sticks near the 4 corners of the blade. If quarter wire is not available, 4 2-inch wide strips of strong cloth, slightly twisted, serve well. All right, so upper part of the doorway blocked, and then it's a 30-inch by 20-inch fan, and then just the crossbars. All right, and next page. Might not be able to read this on YouTube. It's not coming up very well, but okay. A durable but laboriously heavy fan can be made in a few minutes using a 20 by 30 inch piece of 1/4 inch plywood nailed to a single 46 inch long 1 by 2 inch board, or use a single round stick about 1 1/4 inches in diameter, flattened on one side. A fan with its blade made of 2 sheets of very heavy cardboard tied on both sides of a 1 by 2 inch board is decidedly effective when dry. However, typical cardboard will become soft and worthless in most crowded, long-occupied, humid shelters. To fan directionally, it is best to stand just outside and to one side of a doorway so that your body does not obstruct the airflow. Preferably stand opposite and facing the open door, which should be secured open and perpendicular to its doorway. Hold the fan like a golf club and swing it with your arms extended. Then slowly count 1, 2 while you 1. Make the power stroke with the fan blade broadside until the end of the stroke, when you quickly turn it 90 degrees. 2. Make the pendulum-like return stroke with the fan blade kept edgewise, feathered to the airflow until the end, when you quickly turn it 90 degrees, preparatory to making the next power stroke. To pump more air, block off the upper part of the doorway with cloth, cardboard, plywood, etc., to prevent air from flowing back in the wrong direction through the upper part of the doorway. See sketch on preceding page. Whenever practical, directionally fan the air in the same direction that the air is naturally flowing through the shelter. More air usually can be pumped through a shelter if the fan is used to force air out through an... That's tough to read, sorry. There we go. More air usually can be pumped through a shelter if the fan is used to force air out through the air exhaust opening. This reduces the air pressure inside the shelter and causes fresh outdoor air to be sucked into the shelter through the air intake doorway or through other large air intake openings. Thus, with one fan, 1,000 cubic feet per minute can be pumped through a fully occupied shelter. This is enough outdoor air, if it is properly distributed within the shelter, to maintain tolerable conditions for weeks, for 25 occupants during extremely hot weather, and for up to 300 occupants during cold weather. To ventilate and cool room having one doorway and no other opening, do not block off any part of the doorway. If air is fanned into such a room through the lower part of its completely open doorway, then air will flow back out of the room through the upper part of the doorway. However, this pumps much less air than when a separate large air exhaust opening is provided. To increase the flow of outdoor air through a tunnel shelter, several fanners equally spaced along its length should each fan the direction of the natural airflow. This procedure was first proved practical during a 1981 ventilation test that Cresson H. Kearny participated in with the Chinese civil defense officials in the port city of Dalian. In this test, 5 framers, each with a fan of approximately the size illustrated, forced air from the outdoors through a 395-foot section between 2 open entrants of a typical Chinese tunnel shelter. The airflow was increased from a natural flow of 290 cubic feet per minute to 3,680 cubic feet per minute. The 5 excellent Chinese fans each had a blade made of a piece of 3 millimeter, approximately 1/8 of an inch, plywood nailed to a single board. Okay, and then here's the diagram, the 2-person. Okay, and then 2 with a bed sheet fan. Use a two-man bed sheet fan to force thousands of cubic feet per minute of outdoor air through a tunnel or a long corridor, having at least a 9-foot ceiling and a large opening at each end. The most practical design tested was made from a strong double bed sheet cut down to 6-foot width, with the wide hem of its head end left unchanged, and with a similar sized hem sewn in the opposite end, to give a finished length of 6 feet. A 6-foot long nominal 1 by 2 inch board, or approximately a 1.5 inch diameter stick, was secured inside each end hem of various models with waterproof construction of adhesive with tacks or by tying. Before a board was inserted, its edges were rounded. Round sticks were smooth. 2 persons preparing to use a bedsheet fan, see sketch, should stand facing each other at right angles to the desired direction of airflow with the cloth extended horizontally between them. Each fanner should grip his stick with one hand near its downwind end and with his other hand near its center. A pair of directional fanners get ready to make a power stroke by leaning in the uphill direction as illustrated. Then the pair of fanners should count 1, 2, 3 while they 1. Make the power stroke by rapidly sweeping their sticks and the attached cloth in an arc until they are leaning in the downwind direction and the sticks and the cloth are again horizontal. See sketch. So there's 1, 2, 3. Hold the sticks and cloth horizontal to permit air that was sucked behind the cloth to continue flowing in the desired direction while leisurely moving the bedsheet fan back to the starting position. During this move, the fanners change hands as illustrated. Note that what was the upper side of the fan at the beginning of the power stroke now has become the lower side. 2 men thus fanning vigorously produce a net airflow of 5,500 cubic feet per minute through an empty school corridor that is 8 feet wide, has a 9-foot ceiling, and is 194 feet long. The doors at both ends were open to adequately ventilate and cool people crowded into a long tunnel in hot weather. A pair of bedsheet fanners should be positioned about every 100 feet along its length. The practicality of using a bedsheet fan to ventilate some very large mines or caves having 2 or more large openings was proved by tests with members of the Citizens Preparedness Group of Greater Kansas City. These tests were conducted in 1982 near Kansas City in a huge limestone mine that has a ceiling averaging about 17 feet high, corridors about 35 feet wide, columns of unexcavated rock about 15 feet square, and over 1 million square feet of level dry floor space. The air inside is dead and remarkably still because the only openings are 2 truck-sized portals on one side of the mine. 5 pairs of bedsheet fanners spaced about 75 feet apart down a corridor after fanning for several minutes produced a measured airflow of approximately 100,000 cubic feet per minute through this part of the corridor. With many more pairs of bedsheet fanners working enough air for at least 10,000 occupants could be sucked into this mine through one of its 17 by 20 foot portals, fanned down a corridor to the far dead end of the mine, that fanned through a cross corridor, and finally fanned back out through the corridor that has a second truck-sized portal at its outer end. A pair of pre-mechanization coal miners produced a directed airflow by holding pieces of canvas vertically between them while they quickly walked a short ways in the direction of the desired airflow. They walked back with the canvas held horizontally between them, then they repeated. All right, and C, additional advantages of directional fans. No installation is needed, saving working time and materials for making habitable shelters hurriedly built or upgraded during a crisis. 2, directional fans enable shelter occupants to quickly reverse the direction of airflow through the shelter when outdoor wind changes cause the direction of natural airflow to be reversed. 3, 4 or more directional fans, when used to circulate air within a shelter room, can serve like air ducts while simultaneously fanning occupants. 4, directional fans are very unlikely to be damaged by blast effects severe enough to wreck bladed fans or other fixed ventilation devices placed at or near air intake or air exhaust openings, but not severe enough to injure shelter occupants. All right, that was a little longer than I thought. But, okay, so yeah, I'll do chapter 7 next. But that's again just a kind of extension of chapter 6. So yeah, in hot areas, it's pretty critical ventilation and cooling of a shelter, especially if there are a lot of people in the shelters. So Just wanted to cover that in detail. But again, Nuclear War Survival Skills by Cresson H. Kearny with authorization from Skyhorse Publishing. And I will cover Chapter 7 next. Thanks for watching.